Let's paint a master copy with Sir Antony Van Dyck, a Flemish painter from the 1600s. Van Dyck became the leading court painter of England. He started painting as a child and reached master status by 20. He's best known for his portraits of aristocracy and royals. I'm going to be copying Cornelis van der Geest, who was a wealthy Antwerp spice merchant. He used his wealth to support Antwerp artists. I'm painting on a square canvas, so I put the reference image on top of a black square and then I gridded it in equal quarters. Now I'm going to analyze the colors so I know how to prepare my palette. I found my reference at the Arc Museum, but I also looked up the reference in the National Portrait Gallery, and there seems to be a lot more color in this image. It's much more saturated than I believe the original painting is. So I'm going to tone down the saturation when I actually mix the palette. I like seeing it in black and white so I can tell if my paint groups were put in the right place. There's a couple of piles of paint here I'm going to move because when I did the black and white, they just didn't look like they fit down at the bottom where the lights go. That looked better. So you may see a grid here in yellow colored pencil. Initially I thought I was going to paint on a white background, so I changed my mind and I went in my acrylic box and I found this burnt sienna color. So I'm making my background a burnt sienna in the acrylic, so it'll dry fast. I don't have to wait but a few minutes, and then I can go ahead and paint on top of it with the oil paint. And just note that the canvas was acrylic gesso primed, not oil primed. Once dry, I gridded my canvas into quarters with white chalk. And for those of you that haven't picked up your free guide yet, you can grab it on my website. These questions are really going to help you. It made such a huge difference in making me understand the things that I needed to do to improve my painting and bring it to a more masterful level, and it will definitely help you. All you have to do is just put in your email address and hit the pink button and the free guide will be on its way. Okay, ready to mix up the palette. I will put in the description below all the paint colors that I'm using and that you see here. So as you may know, I like to group my lightest values at the bottom of my palette, middle values in the middle, go figure, and the darks at the top. So with these flesh tones, I'm mixing a cool version, a warm version, and a neutral version of each tint. Keep in mind these are starting colors and new colors will emerge as I am painting. And a little tip just to keep your paints fresh longer. After your painting session, pop your palette into the freezer, bring it out about 30 minutes before you paint the next day, and your paints will be nice and soft. Alright, let's take a look at the palette I chose from the color analysis and compare it to what I've built here. I think it looks pretty close. It's a good starting point. So I haven't done any preliminary sketching. I've only put down the white grid, and I have selected the right eye from my reference material to start with. This is my selective start method that I'm following. I learned that from Richard Schmidt in his book Alla Prima 2. There's a link to it in the description. Go down there and grab yourself a copy, read it, and you will be far better off than I was when I first started. I wish I had read that first thing when I wanted to start learning how to paint, especially portraits. So you'll see with the selective start method, I'm going to connect each little brush stroke to the previous brush stroke. It's like painting little mosaic tiles of color. I'm trying to put down in the brush stroke the correct color in the correct value and in the correct place. So that may be a lot to bite off for some of you if you're just starting out and learning to paint portraits. So what I recommend is that you start with an underpainting. So if your drawing skills aren't the best, then go ahead and sketch out. You could even trace your reference material and then transfer that to your canvas and then do an underpainting on top of that. Until your drawing skills improve, that's a great way to start, and then you'll end up with a beautiful portrait at the end. Hey friends, I want to share with you an idea brewing in my head, and I just can't let it go. It's got me so excited, but it's really raw right now, so please be gentle. However, did I mention that it's got me really super excited and how I'd love to involve you? Well, here's the backstory. For several months, I've been getting private messages from people who've reached out with questions like, is there a way I can learn more about how you paint portraits? Or, what techniques can you teach me that will improve my portrait painting skills? Prior to this, I had never considered having a digital course with space for our community to learn and grow together. Of course, it's something I wanted, I'd just never given it any thought. But the more questions I got like this, the more my wheels began turning. I started to see a place where we could learn portrait painting skills like mixing skin tones, seeing values, painting edges, just what makes a portrait masterful. Like I said, it's still raw, but you see the potential, right? I just can't stop thinking about where a digital course that fully shows and explains portrait painting and a community dedicated to creating expressive, masterful portraits could lead us all in 1 year, 3 years, or even 5 years from now. That's what gets me excited. It's the progress we could all make by working together with such a tight focus. But here's what I'm very clear on. I cannot do this alone, and I don't have all the answers. Currently, the idea is very rough around the edges. It's definitely not perfect yet, but the vision is there. And that's why I'd love to extend an early invitation to you. I want you to be part of this, especially if you're willing to help me shape this idea. You will be a founding member. If you're interested, please email me. I can only accept a handful of founding members, so don't wait. Email me today. Send your questions to my email, shelley@shelleyjcox.com. I'll also list it in the description below. Okay, back to the master copy. We're moving into the nose. So when you're painting a portrait, it's very important to understand where your light source is coming from. So with this portrait, it's coming from above, meaning as the light's shining down, it's hitting the forehead, which is going to be the lightest part of the head, and then it's coming over the nose, and it's going to cast a shadow in the nostril area and the upper lip. So you may have seen my proportion tool sneaking in and out of there. What I'm doing is I'm just checking the layout of the distance between the eye and the nostril as compared to my reference material, which is on my computer monitor at the zoom rate of 130%. Now I know to zoom to 130% because it's the same size head on my monitor as I will want it to be on my canvas. They match size-wise exactly so that I can use my proportion tool in a one-to-one way and see exactly how far apart certain features of the face are. So there's key features that I like to check as I'm painting, and that is pupil to pupil, nostril to pupil, those concrete feature anchors that need to be correct. An important thing to remember when painting the eyes, the whites of the eyes, known as the sclera, are never painted with white paint. Never, never, never. Especially the eye that's in the shadow, you want the white of the eye to be darker than the eye that is in the light area. And remember, the eyelids coming over the eyeball and creating a little bit of a shadow rim just below the lash line at the top. Hey, if you're getting some value from the video, hit that thumbs up button, and I'd love it if you'd subscribe to the channel and come along with me on my art journey. Ring the bell if you want to be notified when I upload a new video, which is typically every Saturday morning at 8:15 Eastern Standard Time. So the whole reason to even do a master copy is to try to learn from the great painters from before in history. And what I'm trying to learn from this painting is just how to capture these realistic skin tones, but in a slightly more painterly way. I don't want it to be like a photographic realist, but I do want to capture the true colors. And these masters like Sir Antony Van Dyck just did a great job of creating these beautiful skin tones that were so realistically painted. I'm going to do a special project after this where I'm painting my father-in-law, and he's also from Belgium, which this gentleman here, Cornelius van der Geest, is Flemish, so I think they have similar features, and I want to kind of capture the essence and look of this masterful painting and put that into the portrait of my father-in-law. So stay tuned for that. I'll make a video and show you how it's done and how it comes out. Another thing I wanted to practice was painting white, and you can see this beautiful white collar around Cornelius, and so copying this master painting and hitting these notes that created this white. It's not really painted with a lot of white. There's yellows and grays, and there's violets and pale pinks in here, and I'm trying to put that into my white collar area as well. So the temperature / tints of the three regions of the face, the forehead, across the middle of the face, the nose, the cheeks, and then the chin area, are as such. So the forehead's going to have more yellow tones to it, while the middle of the face is a little pinker across the cheeks and the nose. And then when you get down into the lower face, the mouth and the jaw area, it tends to be a little more neutral, especially in men. And since there's facial hair on this portrait, it really does help drive that point home and make it easier to hit those three color notes in those different regions. I find painting facial hair fun. I really like doing it. I just start out with more bigger shapes of color, blocks of color, and then I go over top of that with a little bit more fine detail and just keep building upon the base layers, loading paint on top, working from darker to lighter. So I'm really liking this base color of the burnt sienna to to do my portrait on top of. It's really giving some nice warm tones in the shadow areas and letting it, I love the ability to let the base color on the canvas show through a little bit. It really gives some cool depth and transparency to the skin. And a lot of times I think of painting skin like a gemstone, like the opal gemstone, where it's just a lot of facets of different colors, and when you step back, the eye blends them all together and then they become skin. But as you're painting them, you just have to kind of mosaically attach these different colors. As long as the value is correct, you can put those different color notes down. I feel like this is a great way to make your painting look alive and feel like there's life in the skin. I mean, there's blood and oxygen and different feelings and moving parts and just underneath the skin. And if you put it all as a flat color, then it's going to be a bit more cartoonish. It's not going to have the life in it that you want. I love it when I finish painting a portrait and it looks like that the person in the painting could just step forward and be out into the same room with me, and I would feel like they were real and there. I hope that makes sense. So ears can be tricky for me. I think the best thing for me to do is forget that I'm painting an ear at all. I need to look at it just as shapes of color that are different values and different tints. So forget it's an ear and just paint the little tiles. So Cornelius van der Geest was a wealthy spice merchant. He owned a gallery in the Antwerp area, and he amassed a huge collection of extremely masterful paintings. All of the top painters wanted to be in his gallery, and he was very big on supporting the arts. Okay, this may sound a little out there, but it is close to Halloween while I'm painting this master copy, and the whole time I felt like that this Cornelius van der Geest was trying to communicate with me or trying to say something through his eyes of the portrait. So the more that I worked on it, the more that I brought it to life, the more I felt sort of a connection to this Cornelius van der Geest. Okay, don't think that's too crazy. I was really glad to have the grid lines, especially when I was painting Cornelius's forehead. I just kept feeling like it was way too tall, but the grid lines really helped me have that anchor. It's kind of like an armature underneath a clay figure. It's just something, you know, to anchor the different features to below and let you know if you're going too far up the canvas or too wide across the canvas. So the Van Dyck Brown paint color is named after Sir Antony Van Dyck. The Van Dyck Brown is a staple on my palette. I love it for its neutral qualities. I can tone down, gray down a too saturated color easily with it. I mix it with a little white, and then I have a couple different values of a gray on my palette, to also work with in the neutral areas. So I'm just laying in the background here, and I'm going around where the white collar will be painted in. I'm just softening up some of the areas around the collar there and making it kind of see-through in the background. Then the white's going to go in just kind of loosely, and it's not really white, it's more of a grayish, yellowish color. I'd say it's like a value 3, 4, 5 that I'm working with. And then I'll hit it with some areas of highlighted, almost white color, like a value of a 2. I just loved painting this white collar, especially the edges where the white met the darker background. With this collar, it's all about mark making. You want those brush strokes to really live on their own and stand as part of the work of art. You want that brush stroke to be visible and thick and beautiful. And just so you know, our eyes love looking at warm and cool colors applied next to one another. In the collar, I'm making sure that I paint a variety of harder and softer edges, especially on the dark side of the white collar. Notice the edges where the face and beard are meeting the collar. I don't want that to be a hard, solid line. It needs to be painterly and soft, and some of the areas a little more harder, some a little more softer. You just need to pay good attention to that area. I think one of the cool things I learned with painting this white collar is to lay down a large brushstroke of a color like that yellow brushstroke you see there, and then you could come back over it with several different lighter colors. Like there you go, right over top of it. But that's still going to show through a little bit. So you can do that with the different pinks or yellows. I believe there were some violets that I put in there, those gray tones, and let that be underneath the lighter stroke that comes along on top. So for those of you that didn't know, you don't sign master copies on the front, you sign them on the back, and you note that it's a master copy and who the artist was. So don't forget to email me if you're interested in becoming a founding member for my digital course, my future digital course. And go to my website, shellyjcox.com, and grab your free painting guide. You guys are awesome. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.